In this episode, we're talking about a father who received the shock of his life again and again and again. I'm sure he could have lived without this surprise for the rest of his life. It's the case of Megan Huntsman, right now on Love and Murder. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Love and Murder, the weekly true crime podcast discussing relationships gone terribly wrong, where our motto is, you're either someone's last love or their first murder. I'm your host, Kai, and we don't have a co-host today. However, this show must go on. As a reminder, our show discusses true crime cases told in the form of a story with mystery, suspense, and just a tiny bit of humor sprinkled on top, but never at the expense of the victim. And I think this episode has like zero humor in it. Be sure to subscribe to Love and Murder on whatever platform you're on, as well as give us a 5-star review right now so you don't forget. If you're new here, then listen to the episode first, and then please rate us. Also, welcome. In today's episode, we're discussing a horrible crime, so heinous that I have literally no words for it. It's the case of drugs and alcohol use. So grab your butts, grab your kids, and hug them really close. But first, I want to remind you to head on over to our Patreon. Last week's episode was a twofer. It was a coming down episode off of Susan Smith since it was such a heavy episode. And we did an episode of a great grandmother that you would think would be a sweet old lady, but not so much. So head on over to our Patreon, become a lamb for $5 or above, and get access to all of this. And if you want to know more about Patreon, stay tuned to the end of the show so you could find out more. Now, on to the show. Megan Huntsman was born on February 26, 1975 in Pleasant Grove, Utah, to Joyce Huntsman and an undisclosed father. They didn't give his name, but it was known that he was an industrial painter. She also had one sibling whose name is Jamie Huntsman. Pleasant Grove, by the way, is a small town of about 35,000 residents, and it's just south of Salt Lake City. Since this is a small town, I wonder if one of my favorite podcasts, Small Town Murder, shout out to them, would do an episode on this case. Anyway, Megan had a strict but loving upbringing and went to Pleasant Grove High. Megan was a really introverted person. She always kept to herself, didn't like sharing about herself, and was known for refusing to ask for help. She did not like to appear weak. She did not like to put herself out there. She didn't want to ask for help. She didn't want to say hi. She was just really introverted and shy. At 18, Megan got pregnant and moved out of her parents' home and into the parents' home of Darren West, the young man she married in April of 1993. Darren West was born in Utah. They didn't tell me the date. I couldn't find the date anywhere. To parents Stephen and Diane West. Darren and Megan met while in high school, but not much else is said about him. Now, they ended up having 3 babies. Darian, born in 1993, JC, born in 1994, and Sawyer, born in 2000. Now, they were also, at this time after they got married and everything like that, they started using drugs. They were into meth. And then it was known that Megan was also an alcoholic. And because of the drug use, they also had a history of domestic violence. This drug use now would land Darren in federal prison on drug charges between 2006 and January 2014. During Darren's incarceration in 2011, Megan was kicked out of his parents' house due to being caught having an affair. And basically, their only rule for her of staying in their house was stay faithful to their son. So even though he was in prison, she was still married. She was still living at his parents' home. And on top of all that, even though they gave her the stipulation, she decided to cheat on him with a coworker of hers. Now, I would say, what was she thinking? But she was on drugs and alcohol, so basically she wasn't thinking. She moved back into her mother's house when she was kicked out. So she moved back into her mother's house in West Valley City at that time, and then went on and moved in with her boyfriend at the Meadowbrook Village Mobile Home Park. There, she made friends with her neighbors and even watched their kids. So she just had, a normal life there. On April 11th, which is a Saturday, 2014, when Darren got out of prison, him and his family began cleaning out his parents' garage, basically getting things out of there or whatever so he could move out of the halfway house and into his parents' house. The youngest daughter, Sawyer, at this point, the girls are 20, 18, and 14, so Sawyer's 14. And side note, at this point, the 20-year-old was pregnant, and it was said that Megan was so excited about being a grandmother. So anyways, back to the story. The youngest daughter, Sawyer, who's 14 at this time, opened a box in the garage. Remember, they're cleaning out the garage and everything, and found something weird. It looked like some type of weird, doll in a bag. But after she looked closer at it, she realized that it was actually a dead baby in a bag. Of course, police were called out. Now, who would stop by this house and just put a random baby in their garage? I mean, also, who would do such a heinous thing in the first place? Police came out and searched the garage, and while searching, began questioning the occupants of the house. They also went to Megan's boyfriend's house to find her. And at that time, her boyfriend was just pulling up to his house from his mom's funeral when he saw police cars surrounding his place. Like, can you imagine that? You're just like, what the hell is going on? Now, during interviewing Megan, she revealed that it was their baby and insisted that it had been stillborn and that she had delivered this baby right after Darren went to prison. Now, Darren was shocked, which is, I'm sure, the understatement of the century, and wanted to know why she did that. And Megan said that when the stillborn baby came forth, she didn't know what else to do, so she hid the body. I mean, to me, you could have gone to the hospital, like any rational other person. I mean, that's just my thought, but this is what she said. However, after getting a warrant to search the house an hour later, police discovered a second body of a newborn baby at the scene after opening another box. Then another, and another, and another, and another, and another. Each baby was found inside a box that were on different shelves or cabinets in the garage that had been wrapped in layers of plastic or blankets or shirts, and some were even taped shut with electrical tape. Each baby was also covered with a chemical, which police were figuring it was possibly iodine. In the garage, authorities also found a pair of bloody leather gloves and a pair of women's underwear. Then, in the master bedroom, they found infant booties and baby clothes. They also took stained sections of a mattress from the master bedroom as evidence. After they searched the entire house, investigators realized that they found the bodies of 7 babies. The bodies were all in various stages of decomposition. Quote, "It's been horrible for our department. Some of the things officers saw in that garage, they can never unsee. I've never seen anything like this in my career." End quote. This was said by Detective Dan Beckstrom. Of course, police turned to both Darren and Megan. I could just imagine them all turning in unison to them. Darren maintained that he had no knowledge of any of this and said that he believed no one smelled anything because when they opened that first box before they even called police, they didn't even smell decomposition. Instead, they smelled heavy chemicals. Here's a side note. Another reason these bodies were probably never found is because the house was set up to have 2 separate residences, where the bodies were in the upper residence where they lived, and that had its own attached garage. So basically, if no one but Megan was up there, no one would have known. And it was also said that no one lived in there or had been in there since Megan had moved out in 2011. So, Darren also denied being the father to any of these children as Megan had cheated on him while he was away. Neighbor Aaron Hawker said, quote, "He has told me he had no idea where the babies came from. He has insisted that they were not his," end quote. Megan said that all of the babies were stillborn like the first one, and that she did all of this for the same reason. Basically, police believed neither one of them. Some neighbors even said that they never knew she was pregnant. Aaron Hawker said, quote, "It's a complete mystery to me and my wife, Kathy. Megan was always very shy, but she was always very nice." And that was one of their neighbors. But then 70-year-old neighbor Sandy Wall, and her name is spelled so cool, is spelled Sandy, S-A-N, capital D-E-E, Sandy. Sandy Wall said, quote, "I would walk up the driveway and she would have the smallest of bumps on her stomach. I thought to myself on several occasions she must be pregnant, but I did not like to say anything to her. Megan was so shy and not the sort of person who would engage in conversation. I would also smell pot quite a lot on many occasions and see her drunk. That could have been one of the reasons she was asked to leave the house." She also said, "I had two of my last children at home then, and as any mother who has given birth knows, it can be very messy. I just don't understand how she could have concealed so many babies from her husband." End quote. When police brought Megan into the station for questioning, that's when the entire story came out. Yes, Darren was the father to all 7 babies, so 10 in total. He had 10 children in total. But between the decade of 1996 and 2006, Megan said that she had strangled or suffocated 6 of the babies and put them in plastic bags and boxes. She said she would simply put her thumb over their throats until they stopped moving. That's what she said. Now, with one of them, she put a hair scrunchie around its neck to be sure that it was dead. Now, I know you probably can't hear it in my tone, but I'm seriously trying to control my anger right now. Out of all the babies they found, only one was actually stillborn. Detectives asked her why she did this to 7 of her children, well, 6 of her children, but let the first 3 survive. She said because those children were born before her and Darren started abusing meth. Well, the first 2 were born prior, but she'd been pregnant with her third while she was on drugs. Quote, "She was not murdered because the pregnancy was not known to other people, that is. After she made that, quote, mistake, she never let anyone else know she was pregnant again." Darren, for his part, never even knew that she had ever been pregnant again except for the first 3 children. At this point, he stopped being a person of interest. She said that because of drugs and alcohol, she didn't feel that they could afford the children and afford buying meth at the same time. Then, once she stopped doing meth, she turned to alcohol and still needed money for that. So, you can't afford children and alcohol at the same time, can you? Quote, "Depression and alcohol took hold of me the same way drugs did. I cannot give a reasonable answer why I was capable of such a heinous and sick crime. I held my secret for 18 years." End quote. She also stated that she thought she couldn't be a good mom to those kids. Quote, "In some small way, I wanted to help them avoid the terrible life I had given them. I deprived my little babies of the opportunity of life." End quote. She said that each baby except one had been alive for 2 minutes or less. On Sunday, April 12th, Megan was booked into the Utah County Jail on suspicion of 7 counts of homicide, and they placed her on suicide watch. On Monday morning, April 13, a judge set her bail at $1 million for each count of murder, so basically $6 million. The FBI had to be called in on this one, as the lab in a small town in Utah didn't have the equipment necessary for this kind of case. A Southern Arizona Pima County Chief Medical Examiner, Greg Hess, was interviewed. And he stated that forensic anthropologists would be able to eventually determine the sex of the babies using DNA results. They would also be able to determine if the newborns were full term by examining their bones. More than likely, though, they wouldn't be able to determine if the babies were born alive unless the height of the baby was bigger than a newborn or if there were physical signs of trauma. Another issue was determining exactly how long ago the infants died. They wouldn't be able to pinpoint the time of death, but could estimate the time of death within a span of like 10 to 15-year window. Quote, the older the remains, the larger the window is. The more recent the remains, the tighter you can make that window. End quote. And that's what he said. Now, at the end of all of this, it was revealed that there were 5 baby girls and 2 baby boys that they had found in the garage. During the case, by the way, it was noted that without Megan's confession, prosecutors wouldn't have had a case against her. Like I just told you, they had to bring in the FBI. They couldn't tell, when the babies were born. They couldn't tell when the babies died. It was so much. They could tell it was 5 girls and 2 boys, and they could tell that, these are the 2 parents. That's literally all they would have been able to tell. So if Megan hadn't just sat there and told them everything that she did, there would have been nothing. There would have been nothing. She probably would have gotten away with it. Can you imagine that? Now, everything moved quickly along. There was basically no trial, just plea talks, which started only months after Megan's arrest. 2 of Megan's daughters submitted letters to the courts on behalf of their mom. They described her as a loving mother who had done a good job of caring for them. They said that she wasn't the cold-blooded murderer or killer, I'm going to say that, as some saw her as. Quote, no one could guess my mom would do anything like this. No matter what anyone thinks you are a good person, end quote. Megan's youngest sister, Jamie Huntsman, read the letters and cried as she was reading them. Now, after reading them, she gave her own testament saying that her sister was always loving but timid and shy at the same time. Quote, Megan is not a monster. She's not evil. From what I understand, she was scared. End quote. The family said that they didn't even know about the meth use or how much of a hold it had on Megan and Darren's lives. They then urged parents to watch out for signs of addiction with their children. However, even though the family came forth with this testimony, prosecutors said that there was no denying that Megan meticulously plotted to kill 6 children without anyone noticing it. And I know y'all were yelling at your computers or phone or whatever you're listening to this on, because you were thinking the same thing. So that's what prosecutors said. She meticulously plotted to kill 6 children without anyone noticing it. She even cleaned up all of the evidence before anyone could even see it. So they heard what the family was saying and everything like that, but they were like, yeah, I understand that. But now attorney Jeff Buman, Buman, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say the name, said, quote, these were very cold and calculated killings. She smothered or strangled 6 of her own flesh and blood, end quote. A deal was reached in February 12, 2025, after Megan pled guilty to 6 counts of murder. The deal they reached had little option for appeal, and sentencing would be announced in April. So basically, if they had gone to trial, there would have been a more open option for appeal and everything like that. But with all the pleas that they put in place and they didn't go to trial, there was basically zero, slim to none option for appeal. Let me put it that way. On April 20th, 2015, Megan was sentenced to 6 terms of 5 years to life in prison. She'll serve 49 years in prison before being able to go to her first parole hearing in 2064. So she was basically about 89 years old by then. Well, she'll be 89 years old by the time she's able to go to her first parole hearing. As 4th District Judge Daryl McDade handed down the sentence, he told the court that he was actually the judge who signed the search warrant on the day the babies were found. He'd also quietly hoped that he wouldn't have to be the one assigned to this case. Quote, I really thought I had seen it all until this case. It shocked me then, and it shocks me now. End quote. Josh Flowers, who lived next door to Megan when she lived in West Valley City, gave a statement, quote, "She loved kids. She watched my 3 toddler and grade school age children and my nephew. She would go to the park with them and play ball. My 10-year-old daughter really liked her. That's where I'm still at. She watched my kids. She was in my house." I don't know how somebody could do that and go back on with their day. Be a good mother figure and look at yourself in the mirror and be okay. End quote. Another neighbor, Sharon Chipman, let Megan watch her toddler grandson for years. Just so you know, too, that a law had been passed in Utah in 2001 that allowed people who feel that they aren't prepared to care for their children to drop them off to a designated facility with no questions asked and no liability. This law is called the Safe Haven Law. So she had that option. That's why I'm trying to bring that to y'all. She had that option. And that is the sad and insane case of Megan Huntsman. 6 precious babies were murdered, and a family and community was left in shock. So, what do y'all think about this case? Let us know in the comments below. Or if you want your comments heard on air, head on over to our website, www.murderandlove.com, and click on our brand new shout out system, or SOS. It's right there on our homepage and you can't miss it. Record your comment and it will be played. Well, I don't want to say will be. It might be played at the end of the next episode. If you like this horrible, horrible episode, then you're sick and you need help. For everyone else who was as disturbed as I was, then head on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and rate us 5 stars. You can also download Good Pods and rate us on there too. You can say whatever you want in the description, but it helps bring us up in the charts so others can find us just like you did. Follow us on social media at facebook.com/relationshipcrime, Instagram at Love Murder Podcast. Join our Facebook fan group by searching for Love and Murder fan page in Google or Facebook, or by simply clicking the link in the show notes below. Find our awesome merch by going to our website, www.murderandlove.com, and clicking on our shop in the menu above. We're actually currently redoing our merch shop, redoing some of our merch, getting new ones in there, taking out old ones, and everything like that. So go in there and check it out, murderandlove.com. Don't forget to join us over at our exclusive Patreon community, where you can become an exclusive Lamb member. You get commercial-free episodes of Love and Murder, so you don't have to hear commercials or interruptions. We get straight to the case, and you get even more over there. So you get the pictures, the crime scene, you get more information over in Patreon. You also get the cases dropped earlier than if you weren't a member of the Lamb community, of the exclusive Lamb community. So head on over there. You also get bonus episodes of shows that aren't released for free. You get Love Obsession, Serial Killer Corner, just miscellaneous episodes that I just come out with. Like if I read an article and I saw something crazy and I just wanted to talk to my exclusive lambs, I go in there and do that. You get behind the scenes. You get to know more about the host. Just so much over there. We talk behind the scenes. We just have so much fun. You also sometimes get our calm down episodes. So if it's a really, really heinous case, you'll hear us calming down from that case and everything like that. So you can go on over there, www.patreon.com/love and murder, and join for $5 and above. You get all of that for $5 and above, but you can also join for just $1 if you just want $1 commercial-free episodes. That's it. So we have options for everyone over there, www.patreon.com/love and murder. And a free and easy way to help us out is by simply sharing this episode. Share with your friends, share with your children, share with your mom, share with your grandparents, share. And as always, we end each episode by reminding you, well, Rick would remind you to lock your damn doors at night, but that it's always all love and no murder, y'all. Bye.